Lesbian Detectives. Unsolved cases. She's still missing. Yeah, they haven't found her yet. Well, let's talk about it.
They say he vanished without a trace. Could it be a psychotic break or a tragic accident? Police don't know where the body went. Unsolved murders, body still missing. That's unheard. Where's the witness? Lesbian detectives, what's going on? City on high alert, this out the norm. He did what, the who? Man, that ain't real, these crimes ain't true. Then come uncover these theories with us. We live right now, tuning in is a must.
Right now, Lesbian Detectives. Lesbian Detectives. We about to start the show, so get your popcorn ready, let's go. Pay attention to the message I present to you, the Lesbian Detectives.
This is Lesbian Detectives. I'm Sierra.
And I'm Elizabeth.
And we are here talking about missing and unsolved murders.
We are discussing cases that you have forgotten about or never even heard of.
So sit back, relax, and let's start this podcast.
This is the case of Relisha Rudd.
This case was actually a suggestion. So shout out to the person that actually suggested this case for us. I actually heard this case before. And when it first started developing, this case is very, very sad. So I hope we do this young lady justice.
Relisha was born on October the 29th, 2005 in Washington, D.C. She was born to her parents, Shemeika Young and Irving Rudd. Her mother, Shemeika, spent a lot of time in homeless shelters growing up, and she entered the foster care at the age of 6. Wow, that's young. Shemeika's mother, Melissa, would come in and out of her life throughout the years, but ultimately, she would age out of the system when she turned 18. About a year later, Relisha was born. Her father was convicted of involuntary manslaughter of his 17-month-old daughter in 1992. Jesus Christ. Rough upbringing. Mm-hmm. Apparently, she'd been beaten and thrown against a table. She later died from her injuries. After Relisha was born, Shemeika and Irving moved into an apartment complex in the neighborhood of Edgewood. Here, they would have another child together, a boy. In July of 2007, when Relisha was only 1, the first report from Child and Family Services came in. Relisha had some very apparent injuries on her body. They also reported that there was inadequate food and supervision for Relisha and her newborn baby brother. The police were contacted, but it was determined that no assault could be confirmed and no children were removed from the home.
That's crazy to me. If you see that the child has bruises on them and they weren't taken care of properly, why was they still at the home?
CPS failed them.
Right.
Clearly. Jeez. That same year, Shemeika and Irving moved out of the apartment complex after someone started shooting and injured 7 people in total. Eventually, Relisha's parents ended their relationship together, and Shemeika would meet Relisha's future stepfather, Antonio Wheeler. They would go on to have 2 more boys together, giving Relisha a total of 3 younger brothers. Unfortunately, the alleged abuse and neglect didn't stop with Relisha's biological father being out of the picture. God.
Yeah, she had a rough upbringing. It was just sad. Like, reading her story, this little girl, I'm like...
She just couldn't catch a break.
Right. It was sad all the way around. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, my heart breaks for her. In April of 2010, there was another report made to Child and Family Services. In the report, it was alleged that one of Relisha's younger brothers was not getting the required medical attention he needed after surgery. The report also mentioned that the family was living in, quote, environmentally unsafe conditions. It noted that there was debris and cigarette butts all over the apartment and that the children were bathing themselves without supervision. Again, none of the children were removed from their care.
Just like, how CPS? Like, did you just not care? Or did they sometimes I know that CPS, they will lie and say that they went out and visit some kids, but they really didn't. It was like lie on the paperwork. Like, oh, we went and visit, but they really never did. Because, like, how many reports is somebody going to make before you actually get up and go do some action? Because if you saw all that in the house, why was some kids still there?
I feel like CPS not only, I mean, they only cared clearly about a paycheck. I feel like for them to get the job, they really have to care. And there's really no money that you can pay somebody to care. It just has to come from within. The family bounced between many different apartments during this time, often getting evicted. In the end, at least 5 of Shemeika's former landlords would try to take legal action against her for breaking tenants' contract. Eventually, the family would end up in a motel for about 3 months before going to the D.C. General Shelter in 2012. The D.C. Shelter basically provided housing as well as other assistance to families it deserved. It wasn't a place where you just randomly checked in for the night and then left. These families were under the care of the shelter. They participated in programs to help them get back on their feet, and they had to be there every night. The shelter was funded by the city. The building was absolutely infested with bugs and pests. There were bed bugs, mice, raccoons, and more. Close to 30 people were hospitalized just for the bites.
I'm sorry. Like, everybody know, I am very, very scared of raccoons. It was a fear when I was little, got almost attacked by one. But to live in that type of environment with young kids too, that's just sad. When I did my research, I was looking into her mom to see that did they have a job, you know? Was she trying to work? But I couldn't really find anything. If you guys know, tell me in the comments or DM me or message me. But I just couldn't find out. Because I'm like, you have 4 kids and all. And it's like you bouncing and bouncing. And how are you getting these apartments? Because I remember when we was looking to apartments, they like research us so bad. They look into our background, our job, all of that. Credit score. See if we could pay for it. So for her just go to apartment after apartment after apartment.
Well, we were looking at the nicer apartments. She was probably just getting whatever,
Yeah.
you know.
And I wonder how much was those apartments each month. Back in the time that it shouldn't be like more than like probably 500, 600.
And it doesn't matter. If you don't have the money, it's hard to come up with even that number. A little background story of myself. We used to live in a house, and I was in 4th grade, so this was maybe like 20 years ago. And basically, I think rent was $400, $500 for a 2-bedroom house. And my dad he could afford it easily. He was a mechanic, but because he was an addict and preferred other things, he couldn't pay the rent, or he chose not to pay the rent, and then we got evicted. So I'm telling you from personal experience, like, it doesn't really matter the amount. Somebody who is not responsible isn't going to be able to even pay that.
Right. Not responsible with their money.
Exactly. But he was irresponsible with many other things, but I digress.
Yeah.
There were also several reports of sexual assault. Shelter workers taking photos while residents were showering. Money being exchanged between employees and residents for sex, tax scams, and even a child being taken and recovered a year later in LA as a possible victim of sex trafficking.
This was not a good environment. And I wonder how they were staying like open for so long. That makes no sense. The police had to know. Like, they had to know. Sad. How do you stay open that long? It's like you got the bug bites and then you have this going on too. What were they doing? Like, really, this is not a good environment at all.
No.
I feel so sorry for them children that was there.
A broken system.
Very broken.
She would often call it the G or the trap house. It got to the point where she was known to ask her school security guard, Regina Pixley, if she could stay at school a little bit longer instead of going home to the shelter. She even faked asthma attacks so she could stay with her Aunt Ashley Young instead of going to the shelter. It is extremely apparent that Relisha would have done anything to stay away, even if that meant being without her mother. stepfather, and brothers.
I mean, she loved them, but it seemed that she was just really scared for a child to fake an asthma attack, not to go back home. She was scared to go.
It almost seems like that shelter was hell.
It seemed very well.
Despite her rough situation, she was by all accounts a good kid. She loved singing and dancing and still slept with her teddy bear named Baby.
Aww.
She was in Girl Scouts, to which her grandmother Melissa would state that she ate more cookies than she sold.
Them Girl Scout cookies be amazing. I be ready for each season.
But she enjoyed it. Relisha was also in cheerleading, which is where she would receive the most support. Her cheerleading coach, Shannon Smith, remembers when she first met Relisha. Mm-hmm. She walked right up to her and asked her to be on the team. And she started showing her how she'd been practicing spelling victory with her arms. Shannon Smith was very impressed that at the time, a first grader was able to spell such a big word. Relisha was immediately accepted to the team.
Aww.
This is when Shannon Smith became very close to her. She noticed that she would often come to school with dirty clothes, dirty hair, and an empty stomach. Eventually, it became pretty routine for her to take Relisha to the restroom to clean her up before class and to keep clean clothes on hand for her to wear at school.
That's very nice of her.
Oh my God, yeah. Shannon Smith also recalled some other incidents that disturbed her. There were several days where she noticed that Relisha and one of her younger brothers were among the last to be picked up by their parents. She also recalled a specific incident in which she was late returning from a field trip she'd chaperoned, only to find Relisha and her brothers still at the school waiting to be picked up.
That's so sad. And it's hard for a kid to be like picked up last. Like, I remember I was in elementary school. I was like, all the time, I'm like, be on time. Because I'm like, I do not want to wait for you.
That's neglect. And then the fact, I mean, we don't know if the parents were working, but if they weren't, like, what excuse is that?
Nothing at all. You don't have an excuse for leaving your daughter at your kids, because it was his brother too, at school all day long and not picking them up. First of all, that's dangerous because anybody could have easily got them.
And I know too, a lot of schools, like, they start counting that against you now because that's neglect.
Some schools, like, I don't know if their school like that, but the office worker would not leave. Like, if you was late picking your child up, you have to stay in the office. The kid had to stay in the office until their parent come. I had to do that one time, but my mama got into a car accident. She's okay, guys. But that's only one time that I was, like, in that building.
But it was a true emergency.
Yeah.
So Shannon calls their mother and offers to give them a ride home, but Shemeika refused to give the address of where she was staying, and she hung up on Shannon. Shemeika then called the school directly to ask them to tell Relisha and her brothers to walk home. Shannon Smith would tell the Washington Post, quote, all the girl wanted was to be hugged, end quote.
That's so sad. And it seemed like Shannon was really, really there for her.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like out of everybody in her life, I mean, as this case goes on, you're going to see that lady loved her. She loved her.
She treated her how she should have been treated in the first place. Mm-hmm. And that's sad.
She was trying her best. But as much, teachers can't do much, you know?
Yeah, they can only do so much. This brings us up to early 2014. Relisha is now 8 years old and in the second grade at her new school. She's still living in the shelter with her mother, stepfather, and 3 younger brothers. And she's doing absolutely everything she can to get away from the shelter. She was kind of passed around between her family a bit. She even had a cat named Missy at her grandmother's house. But ultimately, no one was able to care for Relisha full time. This is when Relisha started spending a lot of time with a 51-year-old man named Khalil Tatum. No kid should be spending that much time with a stranger. The only exception to me is a grandparent, but even that, there needs to be some kind of supervision. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. This is a rough story, guys. I'm sorry.
Trust me, you're going to get more mad.
Khalil was a convicted felon charged with breaking and entering, larceny, and burglary. He was imprisoned from 1993 to 2003, and again from 2004 to 2011. Eventually, he would marry a woman named Andrea. According to Andrea's daughter from another relationship in 2014, Andrea and Khalil were having domestic issues, and Andrea was considering leaving him. Khalil Tatum was also a janitor at the DC General Shelter. Shemeika Young reports meeting Khalil in 2005. However, Relisha's aunt and grandmother wouldn't meet him or be aware of his existence even until Relisha's family moved into the shelter. But by 2014, Shemeika told her family that Khalil Tatum was Relisha's godfather.
No.
No.
Sorry, no. My child don't have a godparents. I'm sorry. Just like...
Karen.
Oh, yeah, Karen. My mom, best friend, Karen. Oh, she loves my daughter. She's her grandmother. She's her grandmother. So, because her kid's not having any kids, so she's like, I got to have a grandchild somewhere. But she doesn't even watch my child. Like, we'll go over there and visit. She buy my daughter stuff, but our daughter comes home. Like, we're not saying we don't trust her, but it's still the, like, I couldn't.
Yeah.
Now it's not Karen because you watch our episodes.
Despite the rules set by TCP that shelter employees were not supposed to have personal relationships with residents, we know this rule was being broken left and right. Khalil Tatum was certainly no exception. He was known to break this rule with lots of young girls, often giving them extra attention and gifts like $20 bills. He was grooming them.
Grooming all of them.
$20 for them was godsend.
$1,000.
But it appears that he took a very special interest in Relisha. He would take her out shopping for new clothes and take her to get her nails done. He also gave her a brand new tablet for Christmas.
No, thank you. Take that right back. After the shopping spree, we're done.
Why? Yeah, like, why is he taking her out?
I understand, like, oh, somebody wouldn't buy your kids clothes. Because my child's still young, but we haven't had somebody that physically take her to a store and buy her clothes. That's not really a family member. We have people like, oh, how about sending some clothes? They bring it to us, but other than that, no.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of red flags. And honestly, to me, when he gives her something, I feel like he wants something in return.
Because he would say probably, you remember when I did this for you? Help your friend now. Come on, help your friend now. No.
You scratch my back, I scratch yours type
If somebody say that to your child or anybody, just walk away. Be like, or give it the stuff back. Be like, here, you shouldn't, if I give you a gift, I shouldn't want a reward for giving you a gift. No, I give you a gift for the kindness of my heart, not to be rude or hateful.
Yeah.
He was grooming her so bad, and her parents, like, let it happen. They didn't care.
They don't.
One less kid to care about, basically.
Shemeika Young would tell one news station, quote, I didn't see anything wrong with him. He's a good guy. When Relisha did go out with him, he brought her back.
What is that? But we don't know what he's doing when he has her. Are you sitting there asking your daughter, hey, what's going on? She probably not doing that to her. She's not having that conversation.
But then again, like Shemeika, not that I'm making any excuses for her, but Shemeika also had a rough upbringing. Do you think that maybe that was her normal?
Well, I mean, you could say it, but a lot of people have a rough upbringing and they can detect.
They learn from it.
Yeah. Like, I mean, we're not going to put it out there, but you did have a rough upbringing than me. Mm-hmm. I had a normal childhood. You didn't. You learned things that I didn't learn until I got older in life. Yeah. So it's like, you're not going to let that stuff happen to our child. You know, like, oh, well, I hate when people use it as an excuse. Don't use it as an excuse. Get better. Mm-hmm. Well, I had a rough upbringing. We all, a lot of people have. But we don't use it as an excuse.
You learn from it.
Right. Grow. Therapy.
He would take her shopping. He took her to Disney on Ice. He bought her a tablet for Christmas, took her out to eat with his granddaughter, end quote. Relisha's aunt Ashley recalls that one of the days she was watching Relisha, she got a call from Tatum. She had no idea who this guy was, but she said he was coming to pick up Relisha. Ashley is like, wait a second, who are you? How'd you get my number? Like, what's going on? Khalil Tatum says, I'm Relisha's godfather. Her mother says I can pick her up. I'm on my way. Ashley was obviously super confused and concerned, but Shemeika assured her that it was fine. So she went with it.
See, I don't know about me, but my friends and my family know, first of all, do not give my phone number out. Do not give my address out.
Especially my address.
Okay, phone number, I can block them. I can change but my home address, that's where my daughter lays her head. Do not give that out. That is a safety violation. And for her sister to do it willingly, and then he said, well, I'm going to pick her up. First of all, sir, who are you?
Yeah.
He would not care. If that was my niece, I don't give a care what my sister said. I will meet you somewhere or I will drop her off, but you are not stepping a foot in my house.
Exactly.
The
flying flicker.
Almost cuss. Sorry, guys. Got a little. That's why I couldn't do this case.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Okay, keep going. Sorry, guys. Ooh, got a little hot in here.
Pretty soon, Khalil Tatum was known to Relisha's entire family. It became normal that he spent a lot of time with her. Relisha's grandmother, Melissa, said that she did have a reservation at first, but eventually she saw this as normal.
It's not normal, but okay.
Relisha spent a lot of time with him, but she would come back talking about how much fun she had with his granddaughter. So the family assumed it was fine. But these days with Tatum and his granddaughter would turn into sleepovers and weekends. It was around this time, early 2014, that Relisha began missing a lot of school. Most of the days she missed were excused by her mother. She told the school that Relisha was being treated for neurological issue, and she was producing doctor's notes.
It's not hard to get doctor's notes, sorry.
I wonder if he was paying her. He must have been bribing the mother as well.
Mm-hmm. He was probably giving her money.
Yeah. So the school didn't think much of it, but not all the absences were excused. On February the 25th, Relisha hits her 5th unexcused absence. At this point, the school schedules a parent-teacher conference with Shemeika for March 5th. On February 26th at about 7:30 p.m., Relisha is seen on a surveillance video with Khalil Tatum at a Holiday Inn Express.
It's okay. Doesn't get better, but yeah.
The video shows them walking into the hallway, each holding bags, before eventually going into one of the guest rooms using a key. Tatum's bag looks more like a reusable shopping bag, while Relisha's bags look more like grocery bags. But their contents are unknown. Shemeika would later state that she thought Relisha was going to a pool party for Tatum's granddaughter. But this Holiday Inn Express didn't even have a pool. It's hard to know what happened on March 1st, 2014, because looking onto the case, it's different stories. Relisha's aunt, Ashley, stated that she saw Relisha and her 3 brothers that morning. She even remembers doing Relisha's hair in pink and white bows. Relisha was feeling well and stayed home from school. From here, she says that Relisha is picked up by her mother, Shemeika. Before Shemeika and Relisha leave Ashley's house, they record a video that would be posted on Shemeika's Instagram. Ashley says this is the last time she saw Relisha. Shemeika states that she did pick Relisha up, but quickly dropped her off with her grandmother, Melissa. Shemeika says that this is the last time she saw Relisha. Mm-hmm. But we know that Relisha was with Khalil Tatum on March 1st. The pair was captured on a surveillance at a Days Inn on New York Avenue. They were seen walking past a fountain in the front of the hotel, then through the lobby, and eventually walking into a guest room. This is the last confirmed sighting of Relisha Rudd. The next day, Khalil Tatum is seen buying a pack of 42-gallon contractor-sized trash bags. He also buys a shovel and lime. The same day, he's seen at the Kenilworth Park and Aquatic Gardens, which, as you might remember, was the park near his apartment. Around the same time, Relisha's stepfather, Antonio Wheeler, posts pictures to Facebook displaying a stack of $50 bills and new Air Jordan sneakers.
So I feel like you got your answer that he was paying them.
Yeah. On March 5th, Shemeika Young meets with the officials at Relisha's school to discuss her unexcused absences. And at this time, they offer additional services to help get Relisha to school. Shemeika again reiterates that Relisha was under the care of the doctor for a neurological disorder and has produced several more doctor's notes. An interesting note here is that both on March 5th and on March 7th, the school would report sightings of Relisha. But after further investigation, the police couldn't confirm the sightings, and they maintained that March 1st was the last confirmed sighting of Relisha. I know all of this is a little confusing, so I want to remind you that Shemeika is attending this parent-teacher conference on March 5th. She hasn't seen or spoken to her daughter in 4 days. All of this time, Relisha is still away from her family and racking up these unexcused absences. Finally, on March 10th, school officials called this doctor that was treating Relisha and tell him, "You need to provide more documentation to excuse these absences." So the doctor was like, "No problem. I will absolutely get that for you." And he tells them that Relisha will be discharged from his care by the end of the next week. Mm-hmm. It almost seems like the doctor was in on it too.
Oh, keep reading. Trust me, you'll figure who the doctor is in a few seconds.
On March 12th, Relisha's grandmother Melissa calls Khalil Tatum to ask him if he can fix the tablet he bought Relisha for Christmas. She also asks him if he had Relisha. Melissa told CBS News in Baltimore, quote, "I said, 'Mr. Tatum, have you talked to Relisha, or do you have Relisha?' His answer to me was, 'No, you don't have her.' Then he said, 'Do you know where I am?' And I'm like, 'You should be home getting ready to go out of town on your trip.' He was going to Atlanta, Georgia. 'Yeah, you're right. But I'm already in Atlanta, Georgia,' he said. 'We're already in Atlanta, Georgia.' And I said, 'Who? You, your wife, your daughter, and your granddaughter?' Then he says to me, 'No, me, my wife, Relisha, my granddaughter, and my daughter.'"
Yeah, he said he didn't have her. Now he said he did have her.
Right.
Lies after lies after lies.
He went on some type of retreat, but he told Micah it was at some medical retreat or family retreat or something, end quote. Melissa also said that before she hung up this call with Tatum, she asked him to have Relisha back by the 16th for her birthday party. But this still doesn't sit right with Melissa, and she calls Shemeika, stating, quote, "I said, 'Shemeika, did you know your daughter was out of town with Mr. Tatum and his family?' She said, 'When he asked me, could she go, I said, no, don't take her,' end quote." Although Melissa and Shemeika apparently now know that Khalil Tatum has taken Relisha out of the state without their knowledge and against Shemeika's wishes, neither of them call the police.
My wife is so stressed out. But, yeah, it's like they didn't care.
It's like he charmed them. Well, I mean, they didn't care, and then he charmed them.
Like, after the lie, he said, "Oh, I didn't have her. I don't know where she's at. Oh, but she's with me."
In
What
Atlanta.
the world?
On March 13th, Relisha hits 10 unexcused absences. And at this point, the school is legally required to report this to the Child and Family Services as neglect. But it will take them a few days to respond. On March 16th, Khalil Tatum fails to return Relisha home in time for her birthday party, as requested by her grandmother. There is still no action taken at this point. On March 17th, Melissa calls Tatum, who says that he's back in town and dropped Relisha off at school that morning. Finally, on March 19, 2014, Child and Family Services contacts Relisha's doctor at the shelter, and they set up a meeting for the same day. A social worker from Relisha's school accompanies the agent to the shelter because at this point, Relisha has missed over 30 days of school.
That's a whole month.
It's so sad that the school is the one that reports her missing.
Look, school's like, okay. But they're saying it's 30 days unabsent. It's like the ones that they got excused for.
Exactly.
So it could be even more to that.
That's... Still, Relisha's mother or grandmother didn't contact the police. When they went to the shelter, they go back to the front desk and explain that they have a meeting with Dr. Tatum. Dr. Tatum.
I love making my wife read it because she's like, oh, shoot. Like, she has like light bulb moments as she's reading and like, it's crazy.
After a lot of confusion, an employee at the shelter explains that there is no Dr. Tatum at the shelter, only a Khalil Tatum, who worked as a janitor. On top of that, it appeared that Khalil Tatum abruptly left his shift early that day and could not be reached. At this point, they called the police to speak with Relisha's mother and stepfather to help explain what in the world was going on. Shemeika's story keeps changing, but she admits that she hasn't seen or heard from her daughter in 18 days. She says that it's because she didn't have access to a phone. It's because she didn't care.
Oh, Lord. Basically, 18 days. I can go like a couple hours.
I couldn't let a man take my daughter out shopping.
The longest I've been without like checking in on my child, like 3 hours. And I was in a meeting and I couldn't check in on her. So that's saying something. I like pictures every hour. I'm worse if you babysit my child.
She also insists that Relisha is perfectly fine with Khalil Tatum, and she refuses to file a police report. Antonio Wheeler would later tell the Steve Wilkos show that he spoke with Khalil Tatum and told him police were looking for him, and he claims that Tatum told him that he would bring Relisha back at 9:39 p.m. You know, that was going to be one of my questions, like, how did he know to leave his shift early? Is because Antonio Wheeler was the whistleblower.
Or he probably saw them come into like the place and he's like, oh shoot, because they don't know how he look.
Yeah.
But he could have people asking for him like, oh, you know, he's a janitor, he's there. But that's the one thing about this story, it makes me like cringe, is that he was going to work and your daughter was you still didn't see her.
Well, it's because he would take her for the weekends and nights and stuff like that. So it's normal for that, for her not to spend time. Well, normal. To them it was.
Yeah.
The police called Tatum, but it goes right to voicemail. They would later discover that Tatum's phone was powered down on that day and never used again. At this point, they do begin looking for Relisha, but no Amber Alert is issued. Around 10 p.m., Khalil, his wife Andrea, and 3 other people check into a local Red Roof Inn. All 5 of these people were captured on surveillance near room 132, and at 10:13 p.m., a key card was swiped to open the door. About an hour later, surveillance captures these 3 unknown people leaving the hotel in a vehicle. This leaves Khalil and Andrea Tatum alone in the hotel. At 5:40 a.m. the next morning, one of these 3 other people come back to the hotel to pick up Khalil Tatum. This person goes up to the room, knocks on the door, but says that Tatum wouldn't let him back into the room. However, this person does note that they briefly saw his wife, Andrea, laying on the bed when he opened the door. From here, this person drops Tatum off at a Southern Avenue metro station in Sweetland, Maryland. I do want to note that these 3 other people were identified and questioned by police, but they've never been named publicly. We have no information on these 3 people at all. The police kept this information to themselves. At approximately 8 a.m., officers responded to a call at a Red Roof Inn to check out a vehicle possibly related to Relisha's case. After speaking with the front desk, they discovered that Tatum was still checked into room 132. They knocked on the door, but there was no answer, so they go back down to the front desk and return with a master key. When they open the door, they see Andrea Tatum, deceased, on the bed. There were no signs of struggle, no cuts, no bruises, just a single gunshot to her head. An arrest warrant was issued for Khalil Tatum for killing his wife, and later that day, an Amber Alert is activated for Relisha. Unfortunately, we are 19 days since the last confirmed sighting of Relisha. Over the next few days, they gathered the surveillance videos that I mentioned earlier in this episode, and they continue looking for Relisha in the area surrounding the shelter and motels Tatum was last seen in. The FBI is called in and rewards are offered for both Relisha's return and Tatum's arrest. They also utilize a string of billboards spanning from Georgia to Maryland, showing Relisha and Tatum's pictures. A search of Tatum's home is also conducted. Ultimately, they seize $87, children's clothing, shoes, a cup, mail, a checkbook, several cell phones, 2 passports, and a photo of Relisha. Eventually, the search becomes very focused on Kenilworth Park and aquatic gardens. By March 27, D.C. PD Chief Kathy Lanier says that she was hopeful that she would find Relisha, but admits that it's mostly likely a recovery mission at this point. I have to stress that this park is huge, spanning about 700 acres, and there are several heavily wooded areas. There are a lot of bodies of water that lead to the Anacostia River. But they searched the park all day with about 100 officers, firefighters, and cadets. They also empty all the garbage bins into a large truck to search the contents. Unfortunately, they did not find Relisha. But 4 days later, they would find something in the park that would change Relisha's case forever. On March 31st, the body of Khalil Tatum was discovered in a shed at the park. He died of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. Police would later confirm that the gun used was the same gun that was used to kill Andrea Tatum. Andrea's case was closed, but Relisha's remained missing. On October the 30th, 2018, the DC General Shelter was closed permanently. Thank God.
Right.
So guys, that is it on this case. Relisha's case is still open to this day. The man that can give us all the answers is no longer alive. Instead of giving us answers of what happened to the little girl, he killed himself. All of Relisha's family members are blaming the other person. I hope and pray that she is okay and she had a good life. This is the case of Relisha Rudd.
And let's get into some theories.
Let's get into some theories.
When the person asked me to do this case, I mentally wasn't prepared because I know this story. I know about this case, and we all can have a picture of what kind of life this young lady lived. And we all can picture what happened to her.
Yeah.
My theory is that she didn't make it out that hotel room. I don't know what physically happened, but I feel like he was grooming her, and I feel like he probably was touching her inappropriately. And I feel like for some reason, she fought back that day. And I think that's what happened. I feel like since he's already had so many domestic violence incidents with his wife, he probably got mad and hurt her. Mm-hmm. And the family tripped me out when I was like reading this. They blaming each other like, oh, well, you did this, you did this. You know what? Y'all all felt her.
Yep.
You all let her down. A grown man taking your child out shopping, Disney on Ice, having her on weekends?
Checking her into a hotel room?
Hell no. And I felt like he killed his wife because she knew. She knew what happened.
She probably threatened to speak to the police.
Yeah, they probably got into a fight. He was like, she probably like, hey, I'm going to tell the police what happened. And he killed her. And one thing I want to know is he always was with his granddaughter too. I wonder if the police ever sat down and talked to her about what happened around them, because she probably know much too.
Yeah.
I just feel like I have like so many cases I never blame the parent. I never blame the parent. This case I'm blaming the parents. You can't tell me.
We did blame the parent with Antoinette.
Yeah, well, we found out she really sold. This one, she sold her daughter. You can't tell me otherwise. She sold for her husband to be posting money online and new sneakers, and y'all don't got no place to live. First of all, why are you stacking money like that online? And I wonder if the police can really go for them for child endangerment.
Neglect.
For her to talk online like, oh, I love her. You didn't. I'm sorry, you didn't. Because for you knew. To me, she was in the foster care system. She probably saw a lot and everything. She had to know what was going on with this grown man with your daughter.
Yeah.
And then you didn't see her. I'm sorry, as a mother, like my daughter has spent the night over my mom's house a couple of times. And I'm like, hey mom, let me see my daughter, call me. And she know I'm one of them parents that you would hate to probably babysit my child. Because I like to check up. I want pictures every hour because I want to see what my baby doing. Is she laughing? What's she doing? Mom get tired of me, but she does it because she know I'm a new mom. Even when she get older, I'm like, hey, call me again.
And that's the only place that she's ever spent a night in besides our home. Mm-hmm. Because we're not very trusting, because there's cases out there like this.
She has been watched by other people, but they come to our house, which we have cameras we can see. But like, other than that, no.
So like one thing that I want to touch up on is the fact that there was another kid that was being trafficked. Mm-hmm. I wonder if he was the one that had her as well.
Right.
What if he was running that ring? That's how he came up with the whole Dr. Tatum.
You know what? Never thought of that. And that makes a lot of sense because he probably did this a lot. He probably had many more girls out there.
He realized probably that he didn't want that one was being trafficked, so he probably decided he wanted somebody just to himself. And the granddaughter, she was just bait, or she could have been a victim herself as well. I know a lot of sick people that do this. They like to take pictures, they like to take videos. Whenever they went and searched his house, did they find anything?
They just found like a picture of her, but they never said like what they really found. And it had to be pictures and videos. It had to be.
Did they really go through his phone? Did they really go through his computer? You know, like it's a lot of information that the police is keeping to themselves. The fact that he was seen on surveillance camera buying these big trash bags, container, lime, a shovel, that tells you right there what he did.
And one thing I didn't get in my report, I don't know if you guys can tell me, they saw her enter the room. He never said they saw her like coming out. So to me, if they saw him, like, what did he carry her out with? Because he had to carry her out. He just didn't leave that body in the hotel room.
Right.
So to me, he had to probably put her like in that bag and then in a Tupperware and like carry her out. So to me, I just feel like she never made it out that room. Because at first, like when I first heard her story, I was like, oh, he probably trafficked her. But to me, I feel like something happened that night and she didn't make it out alive.
Yeah.
She probably was getting frustrated. She probably was getting tired of going through that life.
She fought back.
She fought back.
Or maybe that's the night that he decided to go all the way.
He probably like touched her or made her touch him, but he never like probably went the whole way, like you said. Trigger warning for all this graphic, but she probably fought. I don't know. I feel like he probably already did that to her because he had her for so long, like weekends.
She fought back that day.
She fought back. She was tired, and how everybody explained, like, I feel like if she didn't switch schools and she stayed with the cheerleading coach, I feel like we'd be talking about a different story right now. Because it seemed like that cheerleading coach really kept an eye out on her and really, watched her.
And maybe she would have felt comfortable talking to the coach. But she had nobody. Once she switched schools, she didn't have anyone.
Because at that school, she had a cheerleading coach. The cheerleading coach could have been like, the cheerleading coach could have saw the signs because she was buying her clothes. She was doing her hair. She probably would saw like the marks or, certain things. She was like, oh, what happened? And that little girl would have probably told her because she felt comfortable. And to me, when she lost a cheerleading coach and he started like grooming her, it was so easy for him to groom her because she needed that, love.
I wonder what the reason was to put her out of that school.
When I read online, because the school like got big, they had to separate the kids. Like some kids in this division, some kids in that. Mine went through that too. So I just felt bad. Like I mentally wasn't prepared for this case because I know that she had such a rough life. And it's so sad that nobody cared. I mean, people cared. That's the other thing about it. People really did care about her, but it wasn't her family. I put this on everything. Her mom sold her. She sold her to him. And you know what he kept doing? He kept giving her mom more and more and more money.
Yeah.
Because it seemed like the mom was like, oh, money, money, money. Because for the stepdad to post the things that he posted online, they got money.
He was a con artist. He was a con artist for sure.
It was a charm. He charmed them so much. And then, like, I really read online the mom, like, oh, I'm blaming the grandma because she let her go with him. The grandma, like, oh, I'm blaming her because, no.
It was everyone's fault.
Everybody's fault. And it's the crazy thing about it. And then y'all just kept, I felt like they didn't want to deal with her, too. Because nobody wanted her in their house. They kept like, hey, you go here, you go here, you go here. She never stayed at somebody's house. And I feel like the police, they know that she's not alive anymore. They just can't find her. That's the problem. They just can't find her because we don't know where he buried her. Yeah. And to me, he weak. You gonna kill yourself? To me, if you knew you was gonna kill yourself, you knew you're like, oh, you done with this, you should have just gave the police the answer, like, leave a suicide note with the information.
There's a lot of people that have trouble being honest.
Yeah.
And he's one of them. I think he knew that they were closing in on him and he decided to just put an end to it.
Oh, yeah, he really did.
He's not going to want to face the criticism that he's going to get for his charges. He's not going to want to look at his family or his granddaughter or anyone, and he's not going to want to explain himself to why he's the monster that he is.
I hope the granddaughter got therapy because I feel like she saw a lot.
Yep.
She saw a lot. And I hope one day that she comes out and tell like her side of the story and tell what happened. Because I feel like the person who could like clear everything up is her because she was with them a lot. I wonder if her mom ever, I don't know if it was like the stepdaughter or his biological, I didn't see them like which daughter, like who the granddaughter was blown to. But I wonder, I feel like she could really like solve this case. Not solve, she couldn't know where the body at, but she could clear up a lot because I feel like she knows a lot. In the same amount, we don't know what age group she is.
Right.
And it's okay for like her parents to keep her really out the spotlight.
Yeah.
But they failed her. Like, hands down, failed. Yeah. They didn't care. They really didn't care about her. They cared about money. And I feel like he knew that. He knew what they needed. And it seemed like he was charming the mom and the grandma because he was buying them stuff. The grandma had the nerve to say, hey, can you come fix her tablet? First of all, why is she not with her tablet? Why do you have her tablet? Your grandchild been missing. And then it's like, they know that she's missing. They know she's not like, for them, like, hey, she called her daughter like, hey, do you know she out of town? No, I told him not to take her out of town. But you said and call the police. And then it's another thing happened and another thing happened and you still didn't call the police.
And that's the saddest part about it is they didn't notify the police. The school notified the police because of protocol. And even so, like, you kept covering for this man.
And to me, why she wasn't still in school? Like, when they had that meeting, why the teacher, like, hey, I wonder if the school knew something probably happened. Or why they didn't like, hey, let us see a picture of her. Anything. Or did y'all ask what hospital she was in?
No.
Sorry, y'all, this case is just...
Yeah, this is the hardest one I've done, and
yeah,
still trying to kind of
it's
process
just,
it.
You never, like, you hear about people getting, like, kids getting, like, failed in life. But this was just, like, after it. I remember after the first incident with the CPS, what if they did just take her away? Would we be sitting here talking about her?
No.
Or after if she stayed in that school, I felt like this children and coach would have been there for her.
Yeah.
So guys, I would like to tell you about a new true crime podcast that's out. The host name is Rebecca King. And I have listened to a couple of her episodes and I'm like, girl, you are really killing it. And the name is amazing. Her name is Midnight Murder Hour.
Oh.
It's a true crime podcast. It's all about covering cases other podcasters won't. She don't shy away from the gruesome stuff.
Oh.
So it's very kind of graphic. So be warned. Because I'm not really into graphic stuff. Like certain stuff, I'm like, okay, too much. But she goes for it. She does so many cases. She actually covered cases just like us, Bryce. You know, we covered Bryce a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And she actually covered it too. And it was crazy to listen to somebody else, different theories on the case that we covered. And she had amazing theories and amazing information just like us. So check out Midnight Murder Hour. She's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. She's on all your major podcast platforms. So also follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, because we are on all of them too.
Amazon.
Also, YouTube. Check us out on YouTube. Follow us on YouTube. Check our videos out. Guys, this has been a sad case, and I'm so sorry that we had to cover this, but also thank you for the person that suggested this case. This is Lesbian Detective, and I'm Sierra.
And I'm Elizabeth.
Everybody a suspect.
Until proven innocent.
Signing out.
Lesbian Detectives. Unsolved cases. She's still missing. Yeah, they haven't found her yet. Well, let's talk about it.
They say he vanished without a trace. Could it be a psychotic break or a tragic accident? Police don't know where the body went. Unsolved murders, body still missing. That's unheard. Where's the witness? Lesbian detectives, what's going on? City on high alert, this out the norm. He did what, the who? Man, that ain't real, these crimes ain't true. Then come uncover these theories with us. We live right now, tuning in is a must.
Right now, Lesbian Detectives, Lesbian Detectives. We about to start the show, so get your popcorn ready, let's go. Pay attention to the message I present to you, the Lesbian Detectives.